The Wild Robot, Joe. I watched The Wild Robot. I took my son to see it this weekend. This is a movie from DreamWorks Animation, which is basically the last meaningful vestige of the whole DreamWorks experiment that was started by Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen back in the 90s. DreamWorks Animation, over the last 25 years or so, has really been the only major competitor to Disney Pixar in terms of animated movies ostensibly for kids. Their first movie, Ants, was the first non-Disney animated movie to gross over 100 million worldwide, but it also suffered critically from comparisons to Pixar's A Bug's Life, which came out the same year and was considered the better movie. And that's kind of been the DreamWorks reputation ever since. They have been able to hang with Disney Pixar financially, at least in the ballpark, with stuff like Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, etc. But they are not seen as critically and culturally on the same level as Disney Pixar in terms of the movies that they're making. And of course, big exceptions there. Again, Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon. They have some critical hits as well, but they just churn and burn way faster than Disney Pixar. And so they'll whip out a Boss Baby, a Shark Tale, a Trolls, to make some money. And that's why The Wild Robot is such an interesting movie in their canon, because this movie feels like DreamWorks is attempting to make a Pixar movie. This feels like they're trying to do their WALL-E or whatever the case. And the one area I would say where this movie is able to compete, where it is on par with Pixar, if not better, is the animation in this movie is gorgeous, gorgeous, particularly at a time when animation is just starting to get sort of cheaper and faster and more AI-y. I mean, if you look at the stuff our kids watch on TV, it just all looks like it was created by a computer. It just doesn't feel like composed or drawn or painted or human even. So much animation these days just feels so automated. This movie feels like a painting in almost in every frame. It is gorgeous. And I mean, even forget Pixar, this is honestly almost on par with Studio Ghibli stuff. This is just in terms of the animation, it is beautiful. And that's not unintentional. I was reading some behind the scenes stuff on the movie, and the animation team was indeed inspired by the classic Disney animated movies and by Miyazaki movies. They specifically cited Bambi and My Neighbor Totoro. It's also, and this is sad, this is just, speaking of your Lionsgate thing, this is actually the final film to be animated entirely in-house at DreamWorks, because the company is going to start relying heavily on outside vendors after 2024, AI, in other words. So this feels like the animation team was like, all right, this is our last one. We're going all in. We're going to do it our way, and we're going to show them what they're missing when they move over to whatever other model they're going to move to. And the movie is CGI. It's digital, but the animators really took their time with it, and they gave it this hand painted look. It a lot of it, you think you're seeing brush strokes almost. It literally looks like it's been painted, and these huge vistas of this sort of forested island where the robot lands are just gorgeous, and all the animals. And then there's a sequence later on. I won't spoil anything, but there's a sequence where you sort of find out what humanity has been up to, and those sequences are just beautiful and gorgeous as well. So I just thought it was and Chris Sanders, the director, called it a Monet painting in a Miyazaki forest, which is a very that's very ambitious, and he's saying that about his own movie, but he's not off. This thing wanted to be beautiful, and it is beautiful, and it's also gorgeous because it thinks cinematically for an animated movie. So even just the compositions are gorgeous. The compositions are very cinematic. They're not overloaded. They almost are it almost feels like a movie where it almost feels like it has the restraints of live action filmmaking. The way just the natural restraints of live action filmmaking make you force you to pick compositions and force you to make choices. It feels like that kind of a movie, and that's what creates the beauty, I think, rather than something like Transformers 1, which was, again, just somebody poured Red Bull into a computer and left it on overnight. It was just this onslaught of just so much fucking digital animation. It's hard to even make sense of it. The compositions and the animation in this movie are gorgeous. The story is good but not great. I would give it a B+. It's just so clearly trying to follow the Pixar model, this deeply emotional movie that tugs at your heartstrings, and it's about loss and chosen families, and it features these sort of fun, quirky characters, but it's also trying to make you weep like a baby. The movie is like really intentionally trying to follow that model.
Did you weep?
And I think
You're a weeper. Little tear?
I shed a little tear. Yeah, for sure, sure. I mean, whether or not it was exploited out of me is another question, but I did shed a little tear.
Okay.
But I do think this movie gets sort of bogged down in like the rule book of like how to make a Pixar movie. It just feels a little too like rote in the way it's going about it, and it doesn't feel as dynamic or
rote
original.
In a week where you watch 20 Francis Ford Coppola movies is a tough pill to swallow.
That's something.
It must feel weird,
It
watching
does.
like a straightforward movie
with like a really
narrative.
Clear narrative strategy. Yeah, and that's disappointing because this movie is written and directed by Chris Sanders, like I said, who was responsible for what I think is the greatest animated kids movie of all time, Lilo and Stitch. A recent opinion of mine. It used to be
a big one.
Asked me a year ago, I would have said Ratatouille with a bullet. And of course, the Miyazaki movies are amazing. But for me now, it's Lilo and Stitch. And so I had a lot more hope for this, because of how sort of unique and dynamic the story of Lilo and Stitch is. But this just felt a little bit more cookie cutter as a story. But overall, it's a really good movie with some strong voice performances. Matt Berry as the beaver in particular is fantastic. The first time that beaver opens his mouth and it's Matt Berry's voice, that was great. That was a win. Your kids will love it. Sandy keeps talking about Roz. Roz is the robot. He was a big fan of the movie.
Okay.
It's easy to follow. It's beautiful to look at. Good but not great. Check it out.
Okay. Well, we love